Welcome back to Gold Derby for our final slugfest before the Oscar winners, are announced on April 25th. I am Marcus James Dixon. I'm here with Zach Laws and Daniel Montgomery, and we are going to go over all 23 categories, who we're predicting, any potential upsets that we could see happening. And let's start at the bottom of the Gold Derby predictions list, which are the three shorts. So live action short, documentary short, and animated short. And I have seen all of the live actions. And I have to say the one that's in the lead in our prediction center is The Letter Room. And that actually was my favorite as well. So I am keeping that at number one. But I worry about Two Distant Strangers, which is very, very current to what's going on. It's about a Black man that keeps dying at the hand of a police officer. It's kind of like a Groundhog Day repeating loop. So if there is an upset, I could see that winning. Daniel, what about you for this category?
I'm very boring on the shorts. Every time I try and make my own very, thoughtful judgments of the shorts and, watch them all and consider them all, I get them wrong more often than not. So I'm going with our odds. I'm going with The Letter Room. I'm just sticking with that, and I'm going to be very boring and uninteresting with these three shorts.
The thing about The Letter
Room,
I'm
going to steal whatever Joyce Ang ends up predicting. One or the other. We'll see.
Yes,
we'll see what happens by the weekend.
The thing about The Letter Room is it doesn't seem as important as some of these other ones, and that's why I'm worried that there could be an upset here. What about you, Zach?
Well, I think that Two Distant Strangers is definitely the one to look out for, because it also has Netflix behind it. It's streaming on there right now, and so it is very easy to access. I am going with The Letter Room because of all the shorts. It feels the most like a feature film, and that's the thing that we always have to keep an eye out for in this category is which one of these could you see most likely to be translated to the big screen. And the fact that the stars Oscar Isaac, it's directed by his wife, who's a very accomplished documentarian and television filmmaker. It has a sense of scope and scale to it, even though I wouldn't say it doesn't feel as important. I mean, it maybe doesn't feel as timely as something like Two Distant Strangers, but it is a film that is in its, it takes place in the criminal justice system, and it's all about connection and things that are very relevant to us as human beings. So, I mean, I think that it has the right mixture to win. Honestly, it could just be a case of they haven't watched any of these movies and they just see Oscar Isaac on the poster for one of them and they say, okay, that's the one I'm going with.
It also is the only one with kind of a love story. It's kind of an unconventional love story. He falls in love with this woman when he's reading her letters. But that could really help too, because it kind of stands out from the others. But anyways, let's move on. Documentary short, Zach, you've watched all of these, is that right?
Yes, I have, yeah.
And what are your opinions? The odds say A Love Song for Latasha will win.
I think A Love Song for Latasha is really beautifully done. It's a lovely piece of art that's very relevant to today. However, I'm going with Colette because it's the one that I think has the broadest emotional impact, and it's on one of their favorite subject matters, the Holocaust, while also not really being a conventional Holocaust documentary. Again, I mean, I think it's the one that feels the most like it could have been a feature-length documentary. And so therefore, I think that it's going to appeal to voters in a bigger way. But I think all five of these are really good, and I think all five of them in any year could be a winner.
And Daniel?
Going with the front runner, Love Song for Latasha, although I do have Colette in second place. And Tom O'Neill, our editor-in-chief, has a theory that a lot of times the best title wins. Like if it's just something just has the most memorable, catchy title, that sometimes is a good chance. And a concerto is a conversation. Has that kind of feel to it. Plus, it's by composer who's up and coming on the awards scene. What I'm forgetting
Chris
his name
Bowers.
off the top of my head. It's
Chris Bowers.
Chris Bowers. That's it. I've interviewed him too. I'm sorry, Chris Bowers.
I have too.
But like
Well, he doesn't remember your name
he-
either, Daniel, so you're evil.
He composed Green Book, which won Best Picture. He's worked with Ava DuVernay. He's someone I can see them wanting to reward. Plus, with a cool, catchy title. That is my incredibly thoughtful analysis of Best Documentary Short.
Zach, you have me thinking about Colette because of the Holocaust angle. They really do love their torturous movies, and I don't know, this could be another upset potential category. Colette's in third in our odds. Anyways, Best Animated Short. Now this one, speaking of titles, the best title of any movie in any category is If Anything Happens, I Love You. And if you don't know what that title means, I kind of don't want to spoil you. I think you should find this video and watch it. It's, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes or so. And
I believe that one's also on Netflix.
It is. It's a Netflix entry.
It really got me. And it halfway through, I kind of realized where they were going. And I'm like, oh no, this is, so it's not just like a normal animated movie. It's very emotional and it's very real, very important and timely to what's going on, especially in America. Who wants to go first on an animated short?
I'm going with that one as well. I mean, I think last year with the Matthew Cherry film, the title is escaping me, the one that won last year.
Hair Love.
Hair Love.
Hair Love doesn't remember your name either.
I know, right? But I remember the name of the filmmaker. I think that sort of opened the door for different kinds of animated short films winning here, because typically you'd want to go with like the cutest entry, which would be Burrow, which is on Disney Plus. And I mean, typically if it's a movie that plays in front of a Pixar movie, even better. But I think that the kinds of material that these animated shorts deal with, they can reward something that's a little bit more mature, a little tougher, a little darker. And I think this one, having the influence of Netflix behind it, Laura Dern is also an executive producer on it. I think that, it's going to be enough for it to win. Because really, I mean, everything else is very good, but I think it feels kind of slight when stood up next to this one.
Daniel?
Going with the front runner, If Anything Happens, I Love You.
Mm-hmm. I agree with Zach that Burrow is in this race. It is the cute bunny who's trying to build a home underground. But I think we have a front runner here, and I think it's If Anything Happens, I Love You. So let's move on to Best International Film. This is one where a lot of people seem to be going with the front runner. I mean, at Gold Derby, Another Round has more than 5,000 people predicting it. Second place is Quo Vadis Aida with 100. So that's quite a big difference. And I know, Daniel, you loved Aida, right?
Yeah, I love both of them, actually. They're both among my favorite films of the last year, and I would be happy to see either of them win. I was thinking that this was maybe going to be close, even with Another Round having that directing nomination, because Quo Vadis is such a gut punch, emotional, sensational movie. But then Another Round beat even Minotti at the BAFTAs, which kind of surprised me, given just that Minotti has overall a higher profile this award season. So if Another Round was that strong there, plus the directing nomination for Thomas Vinterberg, plus the emotional backstory, how Vinterberg's daughter died as the film was starting production, and it's dedicated to her. I think it's probably not 100% locked, but a fairly secure frontrunner.
And Zach, we should mention Collective is nominated too, which is also up for the Documentary Feature Award.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that under the old rules where you had to actually watch all of the foreign language entries, Quo Vadis Ida or even Collective would have had a better chance of actually winning, because we did see that a lot, especially in this last century, where Amelie or Pan's Labyrinth would lose in this category to The Lives of Others, and I think was it Nowhere in Africa that beat Amelie? I can't remember. Some awards expert, we are, we can't remember people's names, we can't remember movies' names. But I think that given the recent trend of, just voting for the film with the highest profile, I think another round, getting that nomination for Thomas Vinterberg puts it over the finish line.
Yeah, I would be shocked if another round didn't win, especially as Daniel mentioned, it just pulled off kind of an upset at BAFTA. And there's a lot of similar voters with the British Academy and the Academy Awards. So now we're going to move on to one of the more cutthroat categories at the 2021 Oscars, documentary feature. Early on at Gold Derby, Time was the overwhelming frontrunner, but it's slowly moved down to second place as something else has taken over, and that's My Octopus Teacher. And Octopus has not won all of the precursors, but it did win a couple of important ones, namely Producers Guild. Daniel, why don't you start with this category?
Yeah, I think My Octopus Teacher is pretty solidly out front. I had Time predicted to win, or like after the Oscar nominations were announced, but I wasn't comfortable or confident in it. I think it's a fantastic documentary, but it's also a very kind of artsy, internal, like insular kind of thing. It's not the kind of thing that they really go for very much. But I couldn't figure out what was going to be the alternative until the Producers Guild Award went to My Octopus Teacher, and then My Octopus Teacher won the BAFTA award. So I think it's fairly solidly out front, and I honestly don't even think, again, because Time is so not what the Oscars usually go for here. I don't think it's even second. I think Crip Camp, which is this other feel good, inspirational film, but also very politically resonant about disabled people fighting for accessibility rights. I think that's probably the next in line to win, and I think probably even Collective. Which, if they're going to go hard hitting, that's the kind of hard hitting that the Oscars generally go for, like your Inside Job kind of film. So I think it's probably between those three, and I don't think it can win, but I don't want to disregard The Mole Agent, which is actually probably my favorite of these five, even though this is a really fantastic group of 5 documentaries.
I loved The Mole Agent too. My favorite though would be Crip Camp. That one just snuck up on me. I thought it would just be this little story about a camp, but then halfway through it becomes, as you said, this civil rights thing about disabled people getting rights in America. And and the ending is absolutely fantastic. Okay, Zach, what about you?
Yeah, I think Time always felt like a really weird front runner to me, just because of all the reasons that Daniel said. It's more like an art piece than a traditional documentary. And they don't tend to go for that at the Oscars. As soon as My Octopus Teacher won at the PGA, I switched my prediction to it, just because, the reactions to that have been so overwhelmingly positive. It combines a lot of different things that they love in documentary winners. It's both a feel-good story. It's all about man reconnecting with nature and connecting with animals. And it also has like the scale and scope of something like Free Solo, which was a winner here a couple years ago. You could very easily see My Octopus Teacher in a normal year playing in IMAX theaters, right? Just so people can like get immersed in all of this incredible underwater photography. I do think that Crip Camp is a spoiler. I also think Collective is a spoiler. I also think that The Mole Agent is a spoiler. So basically, I think any movie can win except for the one that was our front runner at the time of voting. I just think that the combination of PGA and BAFTA and ACE, the ACE award, it's just like, it's hard to think of anything else triumphing here for those reasons.
And I wanted to add, Netflix has 2 of these, right? Octopus and Crip Camp.
Yeah.
And for a while I was considering, which Netflix one will win. but then they sent press people a huge poster of My Octopus Teacher and a coloring book. And I kept checking my mail. I didn't get anything from Crip Camp. So it's clear, at least to me, which one Netflix is hoping will win. So that may influence somebody's vote, maybe not, who knows. Okay, best animated feature. I don't even know how long we should talk about this because it just seems like Soul is winning everything. I don't think it's lost a single award this whole season. Wolfwalkers is a soft number 2. My favorite is Onward. If I was an Oscar voter, I would vote for Onward. Zach, what about you?
Soul has got this wrapped up, and I guess we can also say that about the score category, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. It's the closest one that came to being a Best Picture nominee, and it's just like you said. What more can we say about this category? A lot of good nominees here, I would add, but it's just no competition.
Yeah, I'd say Soul pretty easily. Wolfwalkers, I would have said could have put up a fight, but like it would have needed to upset somewhere. Like BAFTA would have been a perfect place to have seen a Wolfwalker surprise, but it didn't. I would say outside chance that maybe they love Glenn Keane enough to give it to Over the Moon, but as much as I liked Over the Moon, it didn't really make that much of a cultural impact. So yeah, I think it's just Soul. Some things are just easy.
Yeah, that's a category I'm not losing any sleep over. But what I am losing sleep over is best visual effects. Tenet is once again the odds-on front runner with 5,000 people predicting it at Gold Derby. But The Midnight Sky won the Visual Effects Society Award. But then again, Tenet won BAFTA. So between those two, what one do you guys think? Or do you think it could be one of the others? Mulan, The One and Only Ivan, and Love and Monsters. How about Daniel first?
This is one of those tricky visual effects years where, usually like last year, like when you had, it's like, 1917 is the Best Picture nominee that won BAFTA. So, that was, the winner there. Here, like the most nominated film in this category has 2 nominations, and that's Tenet and Mulan. They're both tied with 2 nominations apiece. So obviously the Oscars aren't wild about either of those films. So it's just about which way their heads are going. And, we can think about Visual Effects Society showing us, which is possible. I mean, George Clooney is loved by the Oscars, though not this film. I would think that if this film were really popular with the Oscars, even for a non-Best Picture kind of movie, you would have seen Alexandre Desplat's score get in there. You would have seen production design. You would have seen something else, a sound nomination. So the fact that this is its only nomination tells me maybe not, which makes me lean to Tenet. It's the big, splashy Christopher Nolan movie that's innovative in how it uses those visual effects to, with the time reversal and pyrotechnics going in, like it's very clever in a way that I think probably gives it the edge. Plus the BAFTA, I feel like, it's probably just going to be Tenet, but sort of by default.
Yeah, I'm honestly, I don't think this is that close to a category. And here's why. The Visual Effects Society does not really match up with the Oscars all that much. And, they don't really have like an award for best visual effects of the year. They have like several different convoluted category names that, award different aspects of visual effects. But, the prize that the Midnight Sky won, which is their equivalent of a Best Picture winner, that award has gone in the past to all 3 of the Planet of the Apes movies from this past decade, none of which won the Oscar. It went to The Lion King last year, which didn't win the Oscar. 1917 wasn't nominated in that category. They were nominated in their sort of secondary category, which it lost to the
visual effects.
Supporting visual effects, thank you, which it lost to The Irishman. Right. So I would not put a great deal of stock in what won at the Visual Effects Society, because again, like it's all visual effects artists voting for that. And they're not, they know what goes into this stuff. So it's they're much more inclined to be impressed by something like The Midnight Sky than Oscar voters who, like you said, Daniel, they didn't like it enough to nominate, perpetual nominee Alexander Desplat. They didn't like it enough to nominate it in the sound categories or any of these other technical awards that it really should have been up for. I think they're just going to look at this category and say to themselves, yeah, Tenet, the new Christopher Nolan movie. That's what should win here. I might not have seen it, might not have understood it, but I'm sure it has good visual effects, right? And it does, by the way. It is the deserving winner in this category. It should be nominated for a lot more than it was.
Usually in this category, you look at what is the best picture nominee, but since there aren't, you look at the one that's the most best picture adjacent, and I would agree that that's Tenet. Remember the Interstellar year? Interstellar won this category, and it was probably close to receiving a best picture nomination.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had 5 tech nominations.
Best sound, which is another category with a huge front runner. And I think at our own Gold Derby Awards, Daniel, you said that Sound of Metal won with a bigger margin of victory than any other category. Do you want to talk about that in this Oscar race?
Yeah, bigger than Chloe Zhao in Best Director, way bigger than Chadwick Boseman for Best Actor. It was so not even close. And it's because Sound of Metal, and this helps especially Sound of Metal because it's an Academy-wide vote and not just sound artists and peers voting for this. It's the only movie in this category that is about how it sounds. One of the biggest conceits about the film is that it uses its sound design to try to convey the experience of deafness that the Riz Ahmed character feels. And so it's very innovative and very noticeable in a way that these other films, however great their sound are, Greyhound, any movie set in or on the water is always a good bet for a sound nomination or a win. Soul is the only other film I can think of that has as much about the sound design that is as noticeable to a lay viewer. But yeah, I think Sound of Metal just this is probably the easiest win on this may be the easiest win on Oscar night. I can't see the other 4 films winning.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is that this season has gone on so long that people are reading into any kind of thing they can see, which I'm sure that people will accuse me of that in a little bit here. But Sound of Metal did not win at the Motion Picture Sound Editors Awards. Greyhound was the big winner there, but Sound of Metal did win at the Cinema Audio Society, which is so basically Motion Picture Sound Editors, they do sound editing. Cinema Audio Society, they do sound mixing. Okay, and as we remember, up until last year, those were 2 separate categories at the Oscars. And so I think that would be maybe a sign of a split last year, but they have 1 category this year. And, for all the reasons that Daniel said, the plot, the title of the movie, I think that it's going to be an easy winner here. So again, I wouldn't read too much into it missing at the sound editors, especially since I think sound editing was not its strong suit. It was the sound mixing that was so innovative in this movie.
And speaking of titles, this is very interesting. In the best song category, 1 movie has the word song in the title, Eurovision Song Contest, Husavik, which is number 2 in our odds. And it's rising. It was not number 2 just a few days ago. It was number 3 when I checked. But Speak Now from One Night in Miami is the winner. And the predicted winner. And we've talked a lot about how there are 3 protest songs, Speak Now, Fight for You, Hear My Voice. And we've been wondering this whole time, will those 3 split the vote? And will it let Husavik win, or possibly EOC Scene from the Life Ahead? Zach, why don't you jump in here? I'm predicting Husavik, by the way. And what are you picking?
I'm predicting Husavik too, but I'm not confident about it. I mean, it's the only song that features very prominently in the storyline of the movie. And that sometimes will make a difference. You look at A Star Is Born, the Lady Gaga song from that, which I can't remember the name of right now. It was the biggest song in the world. um, but yeah, I mean, like they tend to they try to reward things that feature prominently in the narrative of the movies. So I'm betting on that, because I honestly, you know, of the three protest songs, I don't know what you pick. Um, I, I think it would be a shame if Diane Warren lost again. You know, the poor woman has written so many great songs in her life and just continues to get invited back to the party and never leave with a statuette.
I think the only way she'll win is if all 5 nominees in one year happen to be written by her.
I mean, she should really.
We could get that. She almost had 2 this year.
Yeah, I mean, like the woman works. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like I always see her name pop up in the end credits of a movie. But yeah, I'm just gonna go with Husavik because I don't know what else to pick, and you know, I think that, you know, people say, well, there's no song that's ever won like this before. There have been songs that have won like this before, including in this past decade. May I remind you of Man or Muppet from the Muppet movie just 10 years ago. So, you know, it's not as though this is outside the realm of possibility.
Yeah, and the idea of, oh, this kind of song has never won before, like that kind of argument like doesn't pass muster with me anymore after Eminem won for Lose Yourself, and especially it's like a song titled It's Hard Out Here for a Pimp won the Oscar for Best Original Song. So, and it's sort of a similar case. It's like, that's the sort of song where it's like, oh, well, this is not your typical Oscar winner for Best Song, and yet it plays a huge, important role in the film, like Husavik does. So yeah, I'm predicting Husavik. I'm not confident. This is the one category that I think if any of the 5 wins, I'll be like, okay. Like it won't be a huge shocker, just because there is no obvious front runner. Although I do think that this is exactly this is a kind of good Randy Newman kind of year for Diane Warren to win, because it's a year with no clear favorite. So like they could just decide, like, you know what, here, take it. We want you to have an Oscar. You should have an Oscar by now. You know, so we're going to do it for this song, which does stand out, at least because it's her first song performed in Italian and a different language, which gives it a different kind of feel and helps it stand out from the rest of the nominees. So I think it's between those two. You know, even though the front runners speak now, and I think the front runner could absolutely win, and Fight for You could absolutely win, and Hear My Voice. We'll talk about Best Picture later, and other things. The Trial of the Chicago 7 could maybe surprisingly win. Like I could see that happening too. So like it's one of those years where it's tough to pick, because it doesn't feel like there's a lot of clear enthusiasm for these nominees.
And regarding people who think, you know, a song like Husavik can't win, they may be confusing the song with the movie. The movie was very silly, didn't take itself very seriously, but the song was the one dramatic part of that movie. It was absolutely serious. It was a song about longing for home when you're out and about, and the love you have for your home. So I totally disagree with all those people who say it can't win. It can 100% win.
That's a very good point. And, you know, I think, you know, because we should point out that a lot of people are a lot of voters are catching up with these songs through the Academy website, where they're just listening to them in isolation, right? You know, so they don't have to watch the whole movie in order to just appreciate how good the song is, right? So that talking point shouldn't hold a lot of water.
Yeah. And it's like you guys said, it's in the middle of the movie. The others are all end credit songs, and that does matter to some people. Okay, Best Score. Soul keeps winning this as well. The other nominees, Mank, Minari, News of the World, Da 5 Bloods. I know, Zach, you're a huge Da 5 Bloods fan, but I think you're picking Soul here, right?
Yeah. I mean, as much as I would love for Terrence Blanchard to have an Academy Award, I don't think it's going to happen this year. You know, Soul has continued to win, and it's deserved to win, because, you know, this score is so inventive and such an integral part of the impact of this movie. And, you know, if you had told me it's like an angsty teenager that Trent Reznor of the Nine Inch Nails would have this second career as a prestigious Academy Award-winning composer with 2 scores nominated in the Oscar race, you know, Soul and Mank, both of which are so unlike anything that he did as a rock musician, I wouldn't have believed you. But, you know, he and Atticus Ross, who won previously for The Social Network, you know, they keep finding new ways to be inventive in film composing. And I think that that's something that, you know, that should be rewarded, right? I mean, this score for Soul is so wonderfully inventive in the way that it blends sound and jazz and all this other stuff. Like, it's just it's a brilliant piece of work.
And it's so noticeable when you're watching the movie. You're like, oh, this score is actually really good. I'm going to listen along to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty easy win, and you'd think, like, you know, if composers are nominated against themselves, they'd split the vote. But I think it's actually in their favor that they're also nominated for Mank, but that if for Soul, they're also nominated with Jon Batiste. So they're like, oh, we can give it to Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross if we like both scores. And then because we really like the jazz of the Soul score, we can also give it to that, you know, and that would be a way to reward Jon Batiste for it. So I think that works in their favor. Yeah, which is why I think actually Minati, if there's a second place, would probably be that instead of Mank. But yeah, like second place is even a generous way to put anything in this race that's not Soul. Mm-hmm. which would weirdly tie Soul, if it wins the 2 Oscars we're expecting, with like every other animated film that has won 2 Oscars and no more. I don't think any animated film has ever won more than 2 Oscars competitively, which is weird. But yeah, so it's looking good to join that club.
I bet Soul was very close to a Best Picture nomination. It did get in with the Gold Derby Awards. It was one of our 10. Production design, Mank is one of these front runners that's just so far ahead of everything else. And I don't really see a reason why I would predict anything else other than Mank. I mean, it's kind of the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood nomination, which won last year. That, you know, they're taking some old Hollywood and making it look really cool and retro, and the black and white probably helps as well, even though that's cinematography. Who wants to go first on production design?
I mean, for all the reasons you just said, yeah, it's like, that's the reason why I predicted Once Upon a Time in Hollywood would win last year, because it's like most Academy members live in Hollywood, and so like they know how difficult it is to recreate old Hollywood. And so, and I think like it's not just that; it's like it's the way that they recreate San Simeon, you know, the mansion that William Randolph Hearst lives out of, and I mean, you know, they recreate backlots and sound stages and all these different things. Like, I mean, it's a marvelous piece of design. And I think it's like, it's the award that will be given to Mank. It's not, you know, they will nominate a movie for 10 Oscars and then let it go home empty handed, like My Beloved Irishman last year. So, you know, I guess it could be vulnerable, but I really don't know what could beat it. So I'm sticking with Mank.
Yeah, I'm sticking with Mank too. It's so weird what's happened to that film. Like it keeps getting the most nominations in places, and then it can't get arrested when it comes to winning anything, except it can't lose when it comes to production design. It's won everywhere. So I think it's another one of those kind of by default things. Yeah, just momentum is carrying it that way, and I don't see a clear alternative. I mean, I guess potentially Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, but given what I'm predicting, I don't see that winning 4 Oscars. So yeah, I think Mank by default. The Father could have a chance if it weren't so contemporary. I don't think maybe the production design branch would have, but not the Academy as a whole will recognize exactly how the production design is working in that film to create its effect. So I think, yeah, Mank is.
Yeah. The thing about Ma Rainey, which is number 2 in our odds, is it doesn't have a lot of sets, and I wonder if that could hurt it. I mean, the sets that are there are very good, obviously, but I mean, it's an adaptation of a play, and it just takes place in a couple of locations. Well, speaking of Ma Rainey, it's the predicted winner for Best Makeup and Hairstyling. Second place is interesting. It's Hillbilly Elegy, which was a critically panned movie, even though I liked it. Ron Howard, I liked Hillbilly Elegy. Daniel, do you think Ma Rainey is going to win Makeup and Hair like 5,000 other people do?
I think so. And normally I would be very skeptical if, again, like the production design of Mank, it hadn't won everything up, thus far. It just seems to be kind of the momentum just keeps rolling and rolling along that way. I do think if there's an upset here, because this is a category where we often see, we look at the Oscars and sometimes look at it as not the best makeup and hairstyling, the best visual effects. It's more like the most visual effects or makeup or production design, which often wins, especially with the Academy-wide vote for the winners. And if that were the case, I would say watch out for Pinocchio, because that's a movie that definitely could fit your Wolfman Suicide Squad mold of a film that doesn't have wide Academy support, but it has the showiest makeup effects, so it wins. So I'd say that's the closest, but again, Pinocchio hasn't really won very much over the course of the season that I can think of. I don't even remember if it won at the makeup artists and hairstylists guild, the MWAs, as I call them, as they should be called by all of America. So yeah, Ma Rainey sort of another sort of by default thing, because it just keeps winning this award everywhere.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, when the Iron Lady won, it was really just because of like, oh wow, they made Meryl Streep look like Margaret Thatcher. I think Ma Rainey's will win for the same exact reason. That was actually the reason why I had been predicting Hillbilly Elegy early on, but just because of the way that they transformed Glenn Close, a very recognizable figure, into somebody who she so clearly is not. But I think that, Ma Rainey's being the most high-profile nominee in this category, aside from Mank, which is not nearly as showy. I think that just gives it the edge.
I like what Daniel said about Pinocchio, though. I wonder if its low audience score will hurt it. I wonder if the voters have even seen it.
I don't know if they have, honestly.
Best film editing. Now, we finally have a race on our hands. We've been so boring. I'm sorry we're boring people, but best film editing is something that we can talk about and actually have some strong opinions on. I just switched. I had Sound of Metal forever, and I just switched to Trial of Chicago 7 after it won at the Ace Eddies. And the other nominations are Nomadland, The Father, Promising Young Woman. Zach, do you have Sound of Metal still or Trial?
I had been predicting Sound of Metal all season long. I just switched to Trial of the Chicago 7. I'll get into this a little bit later on, but I think that it's going to win something. I think it's a very close race between that and Sound of Metal. It's very hard for me to choose between those two, but I am just going to go switch to Trial. And I'll explain my reasoning a little bit more later on.
Ooh, tease. And there is one little stat I wanted to mention. The film that wins the Ace Eddie for drama editing and the SAG Ensemble, if one film wins both of those, they go on to win Best Picture. So there you go. And I wonder if Trial could win Best Picture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sticking with Sound of Metal. Because there's another quirky little stat where a film nominated for every film that has won Best Film Editing for like 13 years has had a sound nomination, and a lot of times, because those are your music films, those are your action films that have a lot of sound and editing. So I wouldn't necessarily put too much stock in that, but we've seen it like carry through. It won at the Critics' Choice Awards. I believe that was a tie with Trial of Chicago 7.
Mm-hmm.
And then it won at the BAFTAs. And so Trial winning at the Ace Eddie Awards is the first time I was like, because I thought, oh, like, okay, this is just going to keep going sound. And then Trial of the Chicago 7 comes back at the Ace Eddie Awards, does give me pause. But since Sound of Metal has been winning in the places that's not just editors voting, it's an Academy-wide group, the BAFTAs, or the critic-wide group that was Critics' Choice. I'm sticking with Sound of Metal. Just for those reasons. But yeah, like if we start to see a maybe Best Picture thing happening with Trial of the Chicago 7, this could be a place where it gets started.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I totally agree with what Zach said, that Trial is probably going to win something, right? I mean, it's a very popular film. So this, other than Best Picture, this may be its best chance.
And I do want to say
it could win 3 awards, or it could win nothing, I think, about as easily.
Yeah. I do want to say, I mean, I don't want people to think I'm reading too much into it winning an Ace, and that's why I'm picking it. Because I'm looking at all these different charts right now. You know, I don't think that Ace is necessarily indicative of its chances of winning Best Editing. I think it's indicative of winning maybe something else. But, you know, in terms of it losing at BAFTA for this, you know, BAFTA has had a good track record in the last decade of picking this. But I will say, you know, last year they picked Ford v Ferrari, and that won. But the year before that, they picked Vice. And the year before that, they picked Baby Driver. Both of those lost. But then the year before that, they picked Hacksaw Ridge and Mad Max and Whiplash, right? And then before that, they picked Rush. So it's just like, it's very touch and go. But, you know, the Ace is also where Parasite won. It was one of the few places that that film won a Guild Prize, because basically everything else was going to 1917 at that time. So this is a tough call for me. It really is.
Yeah, Sound of Metal is very whiplashy, but Trial is cuts back and forth between the court and the protests, and Trial probably has more editing if you want to go with that. So yeah, I'm sticking with Trial for now. I don't know. I still have a couple days before the Oscars. Okay, Best Costume Design. Some people are picking Emma, which is the English, what's the word I'm looking for?
Period drama?
Yeah, the period piece that typically wins here. But the vast majority are going with Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. I'm going with Ma Rainey as well. And this is one that keeps winning at all of these other precursors, right? Daniel.
Yeah, I was, for the same reason as makeup and hairstyling, I was kind of skeptical about this one for a while, just thinking, you know, again, it's a very limited in scope story with like a 10 characters in a limited physical space. A lot of them are men in suits, although we do get a lot of references to Chadwick Boseman's shoes, so that's a
yeah.
But really, like, the kinds of like really showy costumes, we usually see them on women, and in this case you only get really Viola Davis and that female member of her entourage who she's in a relationship with. So I thought, it's like, you know, this probably won't end up winning. But then Emma couldn't even win at BAFTA, and Emma is so much more like the diagrammatic Best Costume Design winner. So the fact that it couldn't win at BAFTA, and I don't think it won a Costume Designers Guild either, I think yeah, Ma Rainey just keeps winning it, so I'm going to predict it's going to finish out the streak.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, the costume designer of this movie, Anne Roth, is Academy royalty. She won for The English Patient. She's been nominated three other times, all for you know, Places in the Heart, Talented Mr. Ripley, The Hours. She's 89 years old and still working, still one of the top costume designers in this business. So I think that's, you know, I think she's somebody who could win a second Oscar pretty easily.
It's funny, I was watching Emma going, these costumes look like they were made to win an Oscar. Like, they're just so like paint by numbers. perhaps that's why, Ma Rainey, which has more untypical winning costumes, maybe that's why people are predicting it. Okay, best cinematography. There was a shocker earlier this week at the Cinematography Guild when Mank won. Everyone was predicting Nomadland, and I still am sticking with Nomadland. This is not one I'm going to switch because of the Guild going with somebody else. Daniel, do you want to start on this one?
Yeah, I'm sticking with Nomadland too. The Guild has a history of being kind of closed ranks around the better known people, the veterans, the established, and Eric Messerschmidt is more established and working with David Fincher than Joshua. Again, I'm so sorry.
Joshua James Richards.
Joshua James Richards for Nomadland. Yes. But I don't think the Academy cares as much, or else Roger Deakins would have like 5 Oscars instead of just the 2. So I'm gonna go with Nomadland here.
Yeah, it's not surprising that Mank won at ASC if you know anything about ASC. More often than not, their winner goes on to lose the Oscar. And it's very important to just remember, it's like, again, with all these guilds, it's just cinematographers who are voting. It's not actors and all these other people. It's just cinematographers. And so they're going to vote for their friends. They're going to vote for their heroes. That's why Roger Deakins had 4 ASC awards before he ever won an Oscar. Lebesky won several ASC awards before he ever won an Oscar. So, it's not that shocking. Nomadland is still very much the front runner, but I will say, it would not surprise me if Mank won at the Oscars, because it is very much in their wheelhouse of being a technically challenging bit of cinematography, and the fact that it's in black and white and it's made to resemble old Hollywood cinema of the 30s and 40s. So a lot of people might just look at that and say, oh yeah, that's what good cinematography is, right? And it is good cinematography, by the way. It would get my personal vote, to be honest. But I think that Nomadland, being the front runner, and being the best director front runner, I think that puts it at an advantage to win here.
It's also really beautiful. All of those outside shots with the sunsets and that outdoor scenes. Okay, now we're getting into the big categories. Original screenplay. Is this one you were hinting at earlier, Zach? We have Promising Young Woman in the lead, Trial of the Chicago 7 in second place.
Well, actually, I'm still going with Promising Young Woman here. But okay. I do think that Trial has a chance of winning. It's only won the Golden Globe. It lost both the Writers Guild and the BAFTA to Promising Young Woman. But remember, Green Book also lost at BAFTA and the Writers Guild Awards. And we took that as a sign that it was not a safe bet for Best Picture. The only place that it had won a screenwriting award was at the Golden Globes, which is also where it won Supporting Actor and Best Picture, all 3 of which it won at the Academy Awards. So I would not discount Trial of Chicago 7 upsetting here, but I think that they're going to want to give Emerald Fennell something, because Chloe Zhao is so far and ahead, the front runner for Best Director. But Fennell, they've shared this narrative all season long of being the 2 women who are nominated alongside each other and made history in so doing that. And so I think that this is going to be an easy place to reward her.
Yeah, Emerald Fennell reminds me a lot of Jordan Peele. This is a film that's not your typical Oscar film, but it broke out. It has a lot of social relevance, and for that reason, it kind of punched above its weight in terms of what we do expect for this kind of film at the Oscars. So I think that's why we'll see it win here. I do think this is another category where, like, if If Trial of the Chicago 7 is going to green book its way to Best Picture, we might see it here win for screenplay. Although Aaron Sorkin isn't as beloved as I think some people might think he is at the Oscars. Like he's actually underperformed over the course of his career, even though he's been nominated 4 times and he won for The Social Network. He wasn't nominated for Steve Jobs, even though that got 2 acting nominations and he won the Golden Globe. He wasn't nominated for Charlie Wilson's War, which got the supporting actor nomination for Philip Seymour Hoffman. No nominations in the 90s for A Few Good Men or The American President. So, like, Aaron Sorkin isn't someone who the Oscars go like, oh, it's Aaron Sorkin, we must award Aaron Sorkin. But I do think if the film is a picture threat, this is another category where we could see it. It could pull an Argo by winning screenplay, editing, and picture.
Best adapted screenplay. This is one I recently switched as well. I had Nomadland winning for the whole season, and then something happened and I switched to The Father. It may have been BAFTA when I switched. And you know, those are the only 2 of these 5 that are up for Best Picture, and it's so rare it happens, but it's so rare for something to win a screenplay award and not even been nominated for Best Picture. So that's why I'm kind of not even counting on One Night in Miami or Borat or The White Tiger. They were all great movies, but for me, I've narrowed it down to these 2, and I have The Father at number 1. And for me, I mean, I don't have Anthony winning, so this is the only category that I can see The Father winning, and The Father is such a beloved film that I can't see it go home empty-handed. I just can't. So that's why I'm picking The Father. What about you, Daniel?
I also switched to The Father after the BAFTAs. Not right after the BAFTAs, because I was thinking it's like, okay, it's Christopher Hampton. It's, you know, it's a movie starring British actors with a European director. It's a very BAFTAs sort of thing. But then I realized, yeah, well, but Nomadland won Best Picture, Director, Actress, and Cinematography at the BAFTAs, so it's not like it was at a disadvantage there relative to other awards groups. So if they loved Nomadland that much, and that industry group that has such similarities with the BAFTA voting membership still gave The Father Best Adapted Screenplay, then that's how I'm going with the Oscars. But it's so hard to pick because, like, we don't have much else to go on. They were nominated against each other at the Golden Globes, but they lost to Trial of the Chicago 7. Neither one of them was eligible for the Writers Guild, so we don't know what they thought of it. And, you know, so besides this, the only other place where they were up against each other was Critics' Choice, which Nomadland won. So I think it's still kind of either or. But yeah, I'm going with the BAFTA. I'm putting a little bit more stock in BAFTA.
This is a very tough category to call just because they haven't gone, Nomadland and The Father have not gone head to head with each other in very many places. Excuse me. And so it's tough to tell, like, okay, which one is liked the most. But, you know, The Father getting those 6 nominations and being a potential Best Actor winner, as we'll talk about soon, I think that they're going to want to give it something. And, you know, Nomadland being such a sure thing in director, they know that Chloe Zhao is going to get something. So that might free them up to vote for Florian Zeller and Christopher Hampton here. And I mean, it's just like, it's a film that's based on a play. It's an incredibly literate script and incredibly inventive in the way that it tells its story. So I think that people are going to appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, of all the plays that were adapted to movies this year, The Father is a really good adaptation. I felt like I was watching a movie. I didn't feel like I was watching, you know, stage play, which is kind of how I felt with some of the others. Okay, we're finally in the acting categories. Best Supporting Actor. I don't know how long we're going to spend on this one because Daniel Kaluuya has won absolutely everything. There was one secret Oscar ballot I was reading on another website, and one of the Academy Award voters said, you know, Daniel gave a great performance, but he's in the wrong category, so I'm not voting for him. I'm voting for Sacha Baron Cohen instead. And I'm like, you're going to deny this guy an Oscar because your people, your voters put him in supporting instead of lead. Like that's so petty, and I hate that person.
And
I don't know who it is.
also to say Daniel Kaluuya is in the wrong category, so I'm gonna vote for Sacha Baron Cohen for basically being kind of a co-lead in Trial of the Chicago 7.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I mean,
No one in
Daniel
this category has much of a leg to stand on other than Paul Raci
Exactly.
in terms of
right.
category.
Who would be in second? Is that what we should talk about? Because predicting the winner is kind of boring in this specific category.
I
I
don't
do
know.
have Sacha in second because I think Trial of the Chicago 7 is the stronger Best Picture contender than the rest of the films. And he's also, his co-star from Borat is nominated, and he's nominated for co-writing Borat. So the fact that he has both of those films, both such very different films in the same year, could help him. So that's the only other path I see to someone winning this Oscar.
Yeah, I mean, Sasha would be the only I was actually predicting Sasha would win at the beginning of the season until people saw Judas and the Black Messiah. And I haven't changed off of Daniel Kaluuya since. So I think this is like the easiest acting category to call, honestly.
Best Supporting Actress. Talk about a late surge for Grandma Yuh-jung. She didn't even get nominated at the Globes, and then she lost Critics' Choice. But then came along the SAG Awards and the BAFTAs, and she won both of those very important precursors, arguably the most important since the voters are have crossed over with the Oscars. And I am predicting her. I could still see Glenn Close win this because there is this huge passion toward getting her an Oscar. Everybody in the Academy knows she's never won. So I could see that. I don't think I could see Maria Bakalova winning anymore like I could a few weeks ago. She's only won Critics' Choice, right? Arguably, she was in the wrong category at the Globe. She was in lead there. So I always wonder what would have happened if she was in supporting. Could she have beaten Jodie Foster? We'll never know. Okay, I have Yuh-jung, second place Glenn Close. What about you, Zach?
Yeah, I have Yuh-jung too. I had been predicting Maria Bakalova for a long time, really up until SAG. Like BAFTA just sealed it as well. I think that had Maria Bakalova won the Golden Globe and been able to give an acceptance speech, that would have changed the course of the race a little bit. I just think when Yuh-jung Won at SAG and gave that wonderful acceptance speech, and you saw how excited all the other people in her category were for her, it dawned on me like, okay, this is a shoe-in, and it's also the award that Minari is going to win. Because I think for a long time we were all, this was a movie that we all at the beginning thought would be a possible Best Picture spoiler. I think now it's just like, this is the prize that it's going to walk away with.
Yeah, I think Yuh-jung is going to win this. The fact that she won, she's surging late, but she surged in exactly the right places in exactly the right way. She won the industry awards, which is what we're looking at to think about the Oscars, which are also an industry peer group. She gave those two acceptance speeches that both went viral, where her presenters were overjoyed for her. Her fellow nominees were overjoyed for her. For all we know, Glenn Close is going to vote for her. There's so, and she's, though she's new to the Oscars and she's new to most American audiences, she's a veteran actress in Korea. So they, she almost has that overdue narrative too. So, but I do think the only other likely possibility I think is Glenn Close, but it's literally only because she's so overdue. And she hasn't won anything up to this point for it. When we thought she might win the Globe, she could win SAG. So like, I don't think the Oscars want this to be her Oscar. I think they want her to have an Oscar, but they don't want to open a history book and see Glenn Close, Hillbilly Elegy Oscar winner, on her. It's just, I don't think they're going to want her to have an Oscar so bad that they're not going to wait maybe another year or two and see what she's got.
And I've mentioned this before, but Yuh-jung is playing the Alan Arkin character from Little Miss Sunshine, the lovable, quirky grandparent with, you know, health problems, and he won the Oscar, so I don't see why she wouldn't at this point. Okay, well, this is an exciting category, Best Actor. Zach, you've been saying Anthony Hopkins all along. You're starting to convince me a little bit, and so I want you to go first. Is there any way, in your eyes, Chadwick can win this, or is this a done deal for Anthony Hopkins?
It's not a done deal. I mean, yeah, absolutely, Chadwick Boseman can win this. I mean, he's won the SAG Award, he's won the Golden Globe, he's won the Critics' Choice Award. He's such a beloved figure in this industry. There's a ton of goodwill and sentiment towards him. You know, he can absolutely win this. Anthony Hopkins is maybe it's not the biggest ledge that I'm going out on, as we'll talk about later, but it is a big ledge. I just think that, you know, these are private ballots, okay? Like, nobody has to know who you're voting for. And I think there's a lot of people who might not necessarily vote for Chadwick Boseman because they, you know, they're going to feel like, okay, he's a shoo-in to win. He doesn't need my vote. I'm going to vote for the performance that I like the most. And that could be Anthony Hopkins. It could also be Riz Ahmed. I think that Anthony Hopkins winning that BAFTA award, it showed that there is support for that performance, and there is a lot of goodwill towards him winning this prize. And I think you combine that with the fact that the father overperformed in nominations, whereas Ma Rainey's underperformed in nominations. You know, I think that this is a much closer race than people are counting on it. And so I'm going to go with Anthony Hopkins, but it would not shock me at all for it to be Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah, I'm sticking with Chadwick. I agree. It's really, I agree. It's closer than people think it is. But I do think that across the board, other than BAFTA, no matter how much an awards group has liked the Ma Rainey, they've given it to Chadwick. The Golden Globes only nominated it twice. That seemed like a place where Chadwick could have been really vulnerable, because the father was nominated for Best Picture at the Globes, and he won that. The SAG Awards loved Ma Rainey, nominated its ensemble cast. He won that. The Critics' Choice Awards loved it, nominated it 8 times. He won that. The BAFTAs didn't love it as much. They actually liked it probably less than anyone else. And they went with Anthony Hopkins. And the BAFTAs, especially in a close race, it's like you don't necessarily want to bet on the black guy at the BAFTAs. Yeah. You know, the BAFTAs do not have that notorious blind spot. They didn't even nominate Denzel Washington for Fences.
Or for anything, ever.
Yeah. So it's one of those weird situations where, like I was saying about adapted screenplay, where I don't think the father is necessarily just a BAFTA thing. I do think Anthony Hopkins might have just been a BAFTA thing, not necessarily, but since that's his only thing so far, it's hard for me to call that going towards the Oscars. So I think since Chadwick has won everything else, regardless of what Ma Rainey has done at those awards, I'm sticking with Chadwick.
I'm sticking with Chadwick as well, but if Anthony wins, I won't be surprised, and I'll send Zach a congratulatory message because he called this one from early on. This is such a great category, though. Riz Ahmed, Stephen Yeun, Gary Oldman. I mean, come on. I wish they could all win.
I mean, any other year, you could have, this decade, any of these 5 would have been great winners. And I do want to say, I hope that, I'm not implying that maybe people are only voting for Chadwick because of circumstances. I think there are a lot of people who will vote for Chadwick Boseman because they think he gave the best performance of the year. And I know that's been a point of contention for a lot of people on Twitter throughout this Oscar season. But, I hope that we can all agree that if Chadwick Boseman had not given that great of a performance, he would not have been nominated, because they do not nominate people posthumously very often. And so,
And they didn't nominate him for Da 5 Bloods.
exactly. So, I think that no matter who wins in that category, I think if it's either Boseman or Hopkins or even Ahmed, because there's a lot of goodwill towards that performance as well, it will be an amazing moment, no matter what. And so I just think it's a tough category to call. And I wish that all 5 of them could win.
Speaking of tough categories to call, this is probably my most hated category of the year, Best Actress, only because I keep switching it, and I don't want to get this one wrong. I really want to get Best Actress right this year. So I'm going with Vanessa Kirby. No. Sorry, Vanessa. She's the only one that hasn't won. Carey Mulligan won the Critics' Choice. Viola Davis won the SAG Award. Andra Day won the Golden Globe. Frances McDormand won the BAFTA. What do you do here? I'm going with Carey because there is so much love for Promising Young Woman. It's nominated for Best Picture, which Nomadland is as well. But I think they know that Frances has won a couple before. So I think that's going to be in their mind when they're voting here. So I'm going to go with the one that has the most film love, and that's Promising Young Woman. That's Carey Mulligan. Daniel, what do you think?
I'm predicting Carey Mulligan, not confidently. She won the Critics' Choice Award. I'm pretty sure she would have won BAFTA had they not had a new jury system in place during the nominations round. If she had been nominated, she would have won, and she would have been nominated given that the film was up for Best Picture and it ended up winning Best British Film. They loved that movie. So as far as I'm concerned, Carey Mulligan is going in with Critics' Choice and BAFTA. It's a very divided field. The Oscars didn't love Ma Rainey's Black Bottom as much as other groups, and even the groups that loved Ma Rainey's Black Bottom haven't given it to Viola Davis. Critics' Choice nominated Ma Rainey out the wazoo and still gave it to Carey Mulligan. The SAG Awards love Viola Davis disproportionately to other awards groups, not disproportionately to her merits, because Viola Davis is freaking amazing, but like she's won 5 individual SAG trophies. Like they love her, and I don't blame her, but I don't know if that's necessarily enough to translate without any other recognition, or at least any other wins. So I'm sticking with Carey, but honestly, if any of 4 actresses win, it won't be surprising. And if Vanessa Kirby wins, I'll be like, you know what? Good. Let's complete chaos, and I'm okay with it. Let's just lean into it and enjoy it. And Vanessa Kirby is also fantastic at Pieces of a Woman. I feel bad that she's like the odd woman out of this whole conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going with Carey too, basically through process of elimination. If you take Vanessa Kirby out of it entirely because she hasn't won anything previously to this, it would be so odd for me to predict Viola Davis to win Best Actress and not predict Chadwick Boseman to win Best Actor. It would also be very odd for me to predict both of them to win for a movie that is not nominated for Best Picture, right? So it makes you wonder, like, how much support is there for that movie overall? Andra Day, her movie could not even get nominated for costumes or makeup or song or sound in a very weak year for tech categories. So I just don't know if they've actually watched that movie or not. I think her reward is going to be possibly having a film career after this because of the Oscar nomination. Frances McDormand is the one that I'm really looking out for because she is in the Best Picture frontrunner. So we know they're watching that movie, but she also just won very recently. And so there might not be an incentive to reward her right now. I think if she had not won for Three Billboards, she would win this pretty easily, honestly. So I'm going with Carrie because she's in a Best Picture nominee. She's in a film that I think is going to win at least one other Oscar, and she's never won before. And like Daniel said, if she had been nominated at BAFTA, in spite of that crazy jury system, she would have very easily won, considering how much love they have for that movie. So it's a very tough race. I mean, these lead acting categories are hard for me to call. So.
Well, I'm surprised that we're all going with Carey Mulligan, because there are a lot of people out there picking Andra Day. There's a lot of support for Viola, a few people with Frances. So this is not an easy category. So I'm worried that we're all on the same wavelength here. I don't like that.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I do like, Zach did remind me of that last Frances McDormand win for Three Billboards, and it makes me even more annoyed because thinking like we could have given Saoirse her Oscar for Lady Bird, and then given Frances her second Oscar for Nomadland. And then I'm a huge fan of Carey Mulligan, so I think Carey Mulligan should be an Oscar winner by now. But like in that case, I would be okay with like Frances McDormand winning for my personal favorite movie of the last year. It would be great. Yeah, we should just do retroactive justice, and Frances could just take your Oscar over to Saoirse Ronan's house, and then collect another one or two, because she's also a producer for Nomadland.
And the second to last category, we're almost done, is Best Director for somebody named Chloe Zhao. I think Chloe has this one locked up, because her name is in the title. Best Director for somebody named Chloe Zhao. She's won every time she's been nominated. I mean, I kind of feel bad for the other nominees. I mean, going into a ceremony knowing you're losing must be a strange feeling.
It actually might be a relief. Like if you go and it's like, especially if you're like an Emerald Fennell, Lisa Isaac Chung, or Thomas Vinterberg, this is your first individual Oscar nomination. It's like, cool. Like I'm forever an Oscar nominee, and I don't have to worry about, am I going to win? Am I going to lose? Because it's like, you're going to lose, so you can just kind of enjoy the show and just kind of like kick back, have a couple drinks, just
Yeah, no, it's like I guess last year Sam Mendes won everything and then lost to Bong Joon-ho, but the difference is that Parasite was the eventual Best Picture winner, and so it's not that surprising in retrospect. But honestly, it's like, who would you pick as the spoiler to Chloe Zhao?
Second place, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like, it's very cool, I should say, because Nomadland is this teeny tiny independent movie. It's beautifully made. It's incredibly intimate. It's not like the big technical achievement that something like Gravity or The Revenant or Shape of Water, these kinds of movies that typically win Best Director at the Oscar. So that's really cool to me that the last couple of winners can be Chloe Zhao, Bong Joon-ho, Alfonso Cuarón for Roma, people telling these very intimate, exciting stories on, big canvases, within like independent cinema. Like that's pretty cool. Makes me hopeful for the future.
Best Picture, we finally made it. I don't think we thought we'd be talking this long. So if you're still listening, thank you very much. We appreciate you.
Still shorter than the Oscars, though.
Yeah. For me, this has to go to Nomadland. I mean, Golden Globe, Critics' Choice, Producers Guild, Directors Guild, BAFTA. If you have the balls to go against all of those, I respect you, but you may be wrong. Is anyone not picking Nomadland?
Me.
Zach?
Yes, I'm going to take a big lunge and predict Trial of the Chicago 7 to win Best Picture and Best Film Editing and nothing else.
Not Screenplay.
Not Screenplay. I think Screenplay, it can very easily win, but I don't think it needs to win that in order to win Best Picture. And here's why. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you're not thrown off by Aaron Sorkin being snubbed in director.
No, because Peter Farrelly was snubbed in director. Ben Affleck was snubbed in director. The preferential ballot has changed the way that a movie can win Best Picture. We don't have a big sweep anymore. You know, the last film that won in a sweep was, I guess, The Hurt Locker, which won 6. You know, every film that's won since then has been like 4, 3, 2 for Spotlight. And it's because like you're not voting for, it's not just about your number 1 movie of the year. It's about your number 2, your number 3, your number 4, right? That's how we've gotten some of these winners, like I would think Moonlight, for instance, or Spotlight. You know, these movies that win with not a lot of support in other categories, right? Because they're on a lot of people's ballots ranked very highly. So it's not inconceivable that Trial of Chicago 7 could win Best Picture and nothing else. It happened in the 1930s when the preferential ballot was being used. Films like Mutiny on the Bounty and Grand Hotel. I don't know if it's going to happen in the modern era, but it can. Here's why I'm going with Trial of Chicago 7. We've been trying to figure out what the backlash to Nomadland is all season long. And it's not a backlash against the movie necessarily. I think there's a backlash from old guard Academy members against just this year in general. They're not satisfied with this crop of movies. They're not satisfied with the fact that it's all these small, independent, very personal films, you know, all really great movies, all movies that would be in my top 10 of the year. Like they look at these movies as being the leftovers, you know, all the films that got in because, you know, the real contenders got pushed out of the year because theaters were closed. And so I think that sense is going to direct itself towards the most traditional Oscar nominee of the bunch. And we thought early on that was going to be Mank, but Mank, of course, you know, like all David Fincher Oscar movies, is not a traditional Oscar movie, which is what, of course, makes it great. But, you know, I digress. I think that they're going to direct that towards Trial of the Chicago 7. And what's interesting about that is it would be the most unconventional Best Picture winner of all time because it's a movie that premiered on Netflix. And we know how much they hate, how resistant they are to voting for a movie that premiered on Netflix. But they really can't make that argument this year, since what theaters was it going to play in, you know?
Yeah, it would be
Danielle, what do you
incredibly
think?
ironic. It would be incredibly ironic if 2 years ago the Academy is like, we don't like this newfangled Netflix, we're not going to vote for it. And now it's like, we don't like these newfangled indies, we're going to vote for the traditional choice, Netflix. Yeah. But it's absolutely what could happen. I'm predicting Nomadland, and I'm going to be so annoyed if it loses, not because it was my favorite film of the year, but because BAFTA got me again. But in this case, I don't think BAFTA helps it. Nomadland certainly, and I'm like, if The Father had won Best Picture at BAFTA, I'd be so happy now predicting Nomadland to win the Oscar. I just, you know, I'm thinking the PGA in this case matters. They've been wrong several times in recent years after being right almost every time. But when they're wrong, it's usually because they're the ones who usually go for the bigger traditionalist choice. Like they're the ones who went with The Big Short over Spotlight. Although, yeah, Big Short was not the most traditional film, but it's the bigger budget movie. They went with The Revenant over, not The Revenant, they went with La La Land over Moonlight. You know, the bigger, flashier movie. They went with 1917 over Parasite, the bigger, flashier movie. So the fact that the Producers Guild, which does, I would assume, you know, skew older and a little bit more traditional and a little bit more commercial than other guilds and industry groups, for them to pick Nomadland when they had Trial of Chicago 7 was there, they nominated it, they could have voted for it. So that makes me that feels like a really strong vote of confidence in Nomadland. But I do think that with this long season, there has been enough time for people not to get mad at Nomadland in terms of a backlash, but maybe to get bored with it as a front runner. Be like, because you're seeing it win everywhere, which is another reason if it lost a BAFTA, it would have a better chance, even because then, okay, it lost something. So we haven't seen it win in a couple of weeks or a few weeks. But there's just a sense of fatigue that sets in where it's like, Nomadland becomes not a bad winner, but your anticlimax winner. Whereas, so
Front runner
I can see
backlash.
voters, I can see your voters saying, if it's already not their favorite film of the year, it might fall on their list, and they might say like, oh, but I really like Trial of the Chicago 7, especially some of those older, more traditional Green Book voters. So I do think it's like Best Actor. I think it's closer than people think. And I honestly would not be entirely surprised if it wins Best Picture and nothing else, because I'm not predicting it to win anything, but I also think it could win multiple categories. Like it's at least second for Best Editing. It's at least second for Best Original Screenplay. And it's at least second for Picture. So it's close. And I also, like, I've written articles making the case for Promising Young Woman, because that film was probably second place at the BAFTAs, and that has a lot of passion, but it might also be very divisive. Minotti has a lot of passion, and I think it could be a very strong consensus choice. People like a Spotlight, very much like everyone likes it, no one dislikes it, and so that might be reflected in a Best Picture win on a preferential ballot. It could go any number of ways. Honestly, I've started to think like, well, what if Sound of Metal did it? Like, because Sound of Metal could win 2 other Oscars, and like it's got a 97% freshness rating on Rotten Tomatoes. No one dislikes Sound of Metal. So I could see that ranking high. Like that one might struggle on #1 votes. It might not even get enough #1 votes to stay in the game early on, but it'll definitely have a bunch of 2s and 3s, I think. But yeah,
I think
like,
Judas and
anything could happen.
Judas and the Black Messiah has a lot of support too, and that one, for me, that one over Sound of Metal would be the one I would be like, okay, that's the shocker winner that I saw coming.
Yeah.
I could see that one too. Yeah, it's like we've only had the preferential ballot back for what, 10 years now, 10, 11, 12 years. Like it's still very young for us to say can happen, can't happen. Like every other winner in the last 10 years has been one of those. It's like, oh, well, you can't win without X, except, Birdman won without editing, or Argo and Green Book won without directing. A foreign language film won for the first time ever. Like a tiny independent movie about, a Black gay young man growing up in poverty won Best Picture. Like things that seemed impossible 15 years ago suddenly aren't. So I would counsel anyone not to get too cocky around the preferential ballot.
Yeah, and I will say, like, I'm not just pulling this out of my rear end.
We're all honestly pulling all of them out of our rear ends to some degree.
Of course. I mean, like, it's been such a weird season because we haven't been able to see reactions to these movies in real time, because everyone has been confined to their homes. The 2 things that made me decide to switch over were SAG Ensemble win and Ace Eddie win, both of which were places that it was not predicted to prevail at because it's been viewed as dead on arrival for a long time now, right? Because it's lost at all these different places like PGA and WGA. I shouldn't read too much in it in hindsight, but it made me just sort of think to myself, like, could this be the shift in momentum, right? Because all season long, we've just been like, what is the alternative to Nomadland? It keeps winning everywhere. And so we thought maybe it's Minari, maybe it's Promising Young Woman. Now all of a sudden it's like, maybe it is Trial of the Chicago 7. Like, maybe that's not a fluke. Maybe that was just like people getting sick and tired of seeing Nomadland win. And yeah, Nomadland wasn't nominated at SAG. But, it just kind of felt like maybe that's where that anti-Nomadland vote is going. And the question is just, is there enough support on the preferential ballot for that to happen? I think Nomadland could very easily win Best Picture with just #1 votes. You only need 50% plus one to win on the first ballot. But it could also lose on the preferential ballot. So, we'll see.
And movies with women in the central role don't win Best Picture very often, which could hurt Nomadland. The Shape of Water was a rare exception. I think before that it was $1 Million Baby.
Yeah.
So you could be right. I mean, Trial of Chicago 7 is very white and very male, and I think that's the bulk of the Academy, to be honest. So yeah, should we just wrap up now? We've been talking for so long.
Yeah, I think we've actually found more drama in this race than maybe we thought for the last couple of weeks. So.
I love how the
Well,
first half of this conversation was just like, oh, it'll be this. It's won everything. It's like, okay. And then the last like 3 or 4 categories, it's like, what the hell is going to happen?
Thank you everyone for watching. On Oscar night, we are going to do pre-shows at Gold Derby, and we're going to do post-show. So make sure you go in and update your predictions. I'm sure you've already predicted the Oscars, but go in and make updates now that we've seen all these Guild Awards. And you can also predict the Indie Spirits are coming up and the Razzies are coming up. So thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you on Oscar Sunday.